Live right here on the early line on SportsGrid, we welcome you to our third and final hour of this Thursday on TEL. Huge Thursday night football game tonight in Philadelphia. We'll continue to preview the Eagles and the Commanders. You'll get the prop perspective later on in this third and final hour with SportsGrid's Tom Vecchio. Donnie, what a big day for you and TV. You guys will be together making TV live in person. Vecchio into the studio over in Homedale, New Jersey for the first time. How about that for a big Thursday night football game?
Yeah, and he has to understand that he is not allowed to cheer for Washington by any way, stretch, or form, because Kevin of our Eagles fans. It will be unbiased tonight in an Eagles direction, so all of the bias will be going against Washington tonight. As long as we have that settled up front, all bets must be on the Eagles, all unders must be on Washington. We'll have a pretty good night tonight. We will.
Yeah, and I think Tom Vecchio will understand that. A guy that works with Kevin and us regularly, he understands what it means to be in the mix. But we got to really welcome him in to the SportsGrid family tonight. That will be on you. I've worked with Vecchio in many different iterations over the last 2+ years. Never met the guy in person. Can't believe Donnie Rightside gets to do that before me tonight. That will be a very nice thing. We'll talk the one game in the NBA. Donnie Rightside's NBA Cup handicap comes your way up next. That should be very, very fun. And, of course, we'll take an early look at some of the marquee matchups on Sunday because Donnie won't be with us here on a Football Friday, which is always a sad thing. But, again, Thursday Night Football kicks off week number 11, and it's tonight in the city of brotherly love at the Link, a battle for supremacy, as DRS said, in the NFC East between the Eagles and the Commanders. We had to hear from you. What's the best bet for Thursday Night Football? We find out together and Fade the Public. At SportsGrid on Twitter, what is the best bet for Thursday Night Football? Eagles laying 3.5. Commanders as a slight road underdog, but at least the hook on top of the field goal. Over 48.5 for a short week Thursday Night Football game, or the under. Donnie, this is about as close as I remember the public voicing an opinion for a Thursday Night Football game. The Eagles slightly ahead, 32% of the vote, but nearly 30% on the Commanders as the 3.5-point underdog, and a good amount on the over of 48 and a hook as well. I assume you voted Eagles minus 3.5, as did I, so we're not really fading the public, but it's a pretty close distinction.
How's the old saying go? Like, I like the Eagles. So, Ben, if you like it, then you got to put a ring on it, baby. The Philadelphia Eagles minus 3.5. Absolutely. 1,000% is the way to go tonight. 32%. We're not fading any public. We're taking them, Ben. There you go. Got it all involved here. Yeah, you got it. Yeah. Look, I got mine.
We did
you got
that.
one. Ben's going to have one of these soon. Look at that. It's going to have one soon. How about that?
No.
All right.
Go to me. Go to me. Nope, nothing here just yet. You know what? Here's just a quick aside. Talked about this yesterday with my lovely fiance, Chloe, as we were walking around New York City, basking in the sunshine and a new life together. You know what's interesting? When you get engaged, there's nothing really to signify that the person who did the proposal is now also engaged, right? Chloe's got a ring. After you get married, you get a ring. Nothing really for me.
No, but here's what you do. Look, coming from my life here, here's how you keep it interesting. Continue to call her your girlfriend here. It goes over really well the rest of the way. Keep doing that. I used to like doing that. Yes. I'm telling you right now, keep it spicy all throughout. Hey, look, we're going to a party. Oh, is that your fiance? Yeah, that's my girlfriend over there. That's Chloe right there. So keep it spicy. Everybody, all parties enjoy that type of stuff. Trust me on that. They do.
I literally was about to say before you started that little bit of a tale to say, relationship advice from Rightside. And then for that to be what you did. Yeah. Very, very good. But again, unfiltered thoughts here on the early line because your lovely wife and your lovely daughter do not watch the show.
That's true. They don't. Yeah. And by the way, when we do make a trip up to the holiday party, I think I will introduce my wife as my girlfriend just to see her facial reaction. Hits every time. Hits every single time.
That's good. Yeah. I don't think I'll be joining you in that, but I like that for you. Very good stuff. Of course, we'll share all of this. Back to Thursday Night Football. DRS, you are going to bet the Eagles at a 3.5 number. Yes. Again, I expect this game to be close. more than likely decided by a single score. So thus, am I getting a great edge to now have it ahead of that key number of a field goal, that flat 3 now at 3.5? Maybe not, but I do expect the Eagles to win this game, and rather resoundingly. Again, I think winning a game by a single score and resoundingly are not necessarily married to one another or living in matrimony, but I do believe that it's still kind of the way this game plays out, almost like the Ravens and the Commanders. That was a competitive football game. It was really that first step up spot for Washington. They kept it close throughout. They were never really getting beat bad where it felt like maybe they're not ready to sit at the table with the big boys, but they still did lose by a touchdown, and they were a touchdown underdog in that game. This, a 3.5-point spread. If it was a full week on a Sunday, even with the Commanders on the road, it's not a lot of travel, like you mentioned, from Landover to Philadelphia. But the Eagles being at home on this short week game and getting healthier, I do think the Eagles win and cover tonight.
And also keep in mind, like we are led to believe, and rightfully so, over the past 50 years in football, if you are handicapping and betting it, 3 is maybe the biggest number in the sport, right? We go 3s, we go 7s, 10s, 14s, 17s. You get the picture here. But the way the Eagles play football a lot of the times here, and it's not an adjustment on Nick Sirianni. They're so analytical that 3 sometimes is no longer that threshold that they cross over, because the Eagles are the type of team, Ben, hear me out on this. 17-17 game, 4th and goal from the half-yard line where it's 30 seconds left to go where you're supposed to kick the field goal. They probably sneak it in and be like, that's the analytical play ready. So I do hasten to say, like, yes, it is interesting to see the 3.5, and 3 is usually a big number, but the way the Eagles coach and play football, they're so aggressive that I don't think they look at that for the majority of the game. If it makes sense to go for it as opposed to kick the field goal, even Ben, like that's an extreme one. Let's just say there's 4.5 minutes to go. The Eagles are on the 30-yard line going in on 4th and 1. You're supposed to kick that field goal. The Eagles probably honestly go for it with a quarterback sneak. So it's a little bit different when you're handicapping that 3 with the Philadelphia Eagles.
And you heard it from Zeno, right? Where he was like, despite being 7-2, the Eagles fans at times still want Sirianni canned. One of the reasons they did not cover in a game they should have comfortably won by 2 scores against Jacksonville was because of Nick Sirianni being an idiot and probably a bad call to reverse what should not have been a Saquon Barkley fumble that led to a scoop and score. In this 5-game win streak for Philadelphia, they've only covered the number in 3 of 5 wins just twice as a favorite, but all of those lines were against a divisional foe, and the Eagles' defense is improving. Washington has been a favorite in 4 consecutive games. Again, not what you might expect for a rookie quarterback and a first-year head coach that was expected to be a 7 or potentially 8-win football team at best throughout the year. But as an underdog, 2-1-1 against the number for Washington. DRS, quickly on the points, 48.5. More of the public going with an over. I think we do see some offense tonight, but the Eagles defense has been really good as of late. Last week we questioned short week game, total north of 50 between the Bengals and the Ravens. Despite all the offense we expected, felt a little bit too high. It didn't even come close. 35-34, the victory for Baltimore. What do you think in offensive production this week?
I think we get good production at the Eagles. I'm not worried about the Eagles offense. The question should be how many Washington puts up here. That's where we're going.
More on the early line up next.
Enter into the magical world of McLuck.com, where even the smallest of spins can win real cash prizes. Adventure into over 1,000 of the best Vegas-style slot games. So what are you waiting for? Unlock your free welcome offer today. Join the fun where winners play and players win.
Anyone that's been to a sporting event, the atmosphere before a game, I think Game Time Decisions has that same exact atmosphere. This is our arena. This is what we do. There is going to be an energy to Game Time Decisions that you will feel night in and night out. The excitement you get when you lock your bets in, when you're figuring out what you want to do, we can zone in on the biggest games each night, I want this to be the place that people come to before the games start so they feel as ready as possible to lock in their cards. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions to get that new information, react to it, and be able to then bet accordingly. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
Your gut says Miami is going to win, and you should take the over. Your gut also said your NFT selfies would only go up in value. They didn't. But your head is on SportsGrid and knows the QB is in concussion protocol. The backup has a 45 QBR against the zone coverage. The New York D has the most sacks in the league. So yeah, trust your head. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
Right here with you on Pro Football Today on SportsGrid. Odds in motion, trying to see what lines have moved throughout the week.
Never felt more comfortable in this set than I do for this year. I am ready. I'm just getting angry. The hot takes are going to be here all long, people. What in the world is going on in Miami, Dom?
It's not particularly anything to shy away from just because many people are on top of it.
Hot take, hot take.
I think this line is asking you once again to take New Orleans.
Pro Football Today, only on SportsGrid.
Your two premier NBA handicappers on a Thursday to get you set not only for our one game tonight in the association, standalone game, primetime in Salt Lake City, Jazz and Mavericks, but an early look at the second night of the NBA Cup here in 2024 in its second year around the association. DRS, were you caught up with all of the rules and all of the info that you needed to know for the second ever year of the in-season competition, officially rebranded as the 2024 Emirates NBA Cup?
Yeah, I'm all caught up on it. And by the way, the NBA for understanding that. Maybe they're the best handicappers, Ben. When they set their schedule, look, we can't put more than one game on this Thursday night because the Eagles and the Commanders are going to absolutely do battle with monster ratings. We're going to bury one game in Utah just to keep the card out there and keep it moving. Shout out the NBA. Good move by them with marketing.
And we've got a lot of games tomorrow in NBA Cup competition. I believe 12 as I just counted. The only game tonight is in Salt Lake, Utah, hosting the Dallas Mavericks. The Jazz, a 9-point home underdog, total of 231 and a hook. Now, the Jazz have not been off to a prolific start this year. They are just 2-8. In fact, it is the worst record in the Western Conference. The Mavs, though, on a 3-game slide as of right now. The reigning Western Conference champs are a game sub 500 at 5-6. Can the Mavericks get right tonight in Salt Lake?
They absolutely get right. And also, take a look at some of these prop bets. Are like, you see the Splash brother last time going into Golden State, knocking down 6 triples tonight. If he makes 4 triples, that's a plus 110 price here at the FanDuel Sportsbook. And also, Luka Doncic has been very close to the triple-double over his past couple games. He gets that triple-double tonight. That's a plus 400 to plus 420 price right here on the FanDuel Sportsbook. That's the way I'd play it. I do think Dallas wins this game. You see that total nice and juicy, 231.5. I'm just looking more from a perspective for the Dallas Mavericks. They got squeaked there in Golden State, barely lost that game. They rebound with a victory, but more importantly, the numbers all subside here. Give me 4 triples for Clay. Give me a triple-double for Luka.
5 times Dallas has been booked as a 6-point favorite or greater this year. They are 3-2 against the spread. They're 4-1 straight up. They've actually gone under in all 5 of those games, under in their last 4. They did go over, covering as an 8.5-point favorite in the season opener against Victor Wembanyama and the Spurs. 3 losses for Dallas in their last 3, but a 1-point loss to the Suns, a 2-point loss to the Nuggets, and they did actually push that game as a 2-point underdog, and of course the thriller on Tuesday night in Clay's return to the Bay against his former team and Golden State in what was an awesome game on night number 1 of the NBA Cup. So really good competition for the Mavericks on this 3-game skid. Of course, the Mavs, who were one of the contenders for the Western Conference and one of the short favorites entering this year, in the reigning champs out west, expecting to win some of those games, but a dog in 2 of the 3 and a 2-point favorite in the other one against Phoenix. I agree, DRS. Dallas bounces back in a big way tonight in Salt Lake. I wouldn't even mind laying the number of 9 in this matchup, despite being on the road. All right, as we have shared, 12 games, 12 tomorrow on night number 2 of NBA Cup competition. Games count towards your regular season record, as we know, but that additional component of group action. Here's where it stands in the Eastern Conference. Group A in the fold. The Nets and the Knicks in the Borough battle inside Madison Square Garden. The Sixers and the Magic. Joel Embiid probably playing game number 2 tomorrow night in Orlando. Heat and Pacers in Group B. Pistons and Raptors. And then in Group C action, the Wizards and the Hawks. The Bulls and the Cavaliers. Cleveland's debut in the NBA Cup. And East Group C, by the way, very competitive. The Celtics in there, as are the Cavs, who, of course, are unbeaten at a perfect 13-0.
Yeah, I'll tell you what also sticks out, too. The Philadelphia 76ers on the road to take on the Magic. Actually favorites here right now at the FanDuel Sportsbook. Minus 2.5 points. Why? As Ben pointed out, expectations for Joel Embiid and Paul George to play. And my guy McCain filling in there nicely. Just waiting for Tyrese Maxey to come back. But if you are just reading lines right now, that looks like a stone-cold Sixers line right there to pick up a victory. And it feels like those victories are hard to come by this year in Philadelphia, no doubt about it.
Cavs, by the way, 10-point home favorite against Chicago. They just played the Bulls earlier this week. Cleveland, in looking for that 14th win to start, would be their first in NBA Cup Group C action. They have covered in 9 of those 13 wins to start this year. Now let's get over to the Western Conference action on a Friday night in NBA Cup action. West Group A, the Clippers head to Houston to take on a good Rockets team to start this year. The Timberwolves and the Kings. Minnesota, even 500, also one of those Western Conference contenders. The Lakers have won 3 straight. LeBron James has recorded a triple-double in all 3. They head to San Antonio to take on the 50-burger man, Victor Wembanyama. The Suns and the Thunder in a marquee matchup in Group B. Nuggets visit New Orleans. The Pels, it's bad and only getting worse for New Orleans this year. The Grizzlies head to San Francisco to take on the Dubs. Of that Western Conference group action on the second night of the NBA Cup, what stands out?
Yeah, doubleheader there, basically between the Lakers and the Spurs. You got Wemby fresh off that 50-point performance, which is unbelievable. LeBron James, see if he can extend that streak and get another triple-double. Slight favorites there at minus 2.5 points here at the FanDuel Sportsbook. But also, one line that does stick out, the Oklahoma City Thunder favored by 7 points over the Phoenix Suns. Yeah, Bradley Beal looks like obviously he's not going to play in that basketball game, and then questionable here also for Devin Booker. It's like Phoenix is so talented and so much fun. They just can't get any of those 3 on the court at the same time, and it's been that way for quite some time. But that line really stuck out at minus 7, and that's the reason behind it.
Yeah, it certainly does. Kevin Durant did not play in Phoenix's NBA Cup debut on Tuesday night against the Jazz. They still went into Salt Lake and won by 8, covering as a 5.5-point favorite. Phoenix over in 5 of its last 6. OKC, big victory last night in game number 2 without Chet Holmgren against that really bad Pels team, winning by 18, covering as a 14.5-point favorite. But without Chet Holmgren, and still believing Phoenix has enough, even if Devin Booker is going to play, I like the over in that game tomorrow. We'll talk more NBA Cup action on a Friday. Nuggets, 8.5-point favorite in the Big Easy. Golden State, 8.5-point home favorite against the Grizz. Memphis, just a dog 4 times this year. Did lose last night in L.A., but covered as a 7-point underdog, 3-1 ATS. And the Rockets, 7 wins already. More on the early line. Looking at Sunday next.
sharpest football contest show in the land. The Las Vegas Football Contest Show focuses on Circus Sports Million, Circus Survivor, and the Westgate Super Contest, handicapping the games and releasing our contest picks every week of the season. With two former Super Contest winners, Brady Cannon and James Salinas, a former NFL player, Mike Pritchard, and over $1 million in contest prize money won combined, the Las Vegas Football Contest Show will have you prepared this season like none other.
We live in a society right now where everybody's a snowflake, everybody's a cupcake, and everybody thinks that nothing is fair. Everything is like, it's not fair. We should have a better chance. We need more. You know what? I'm old enough to remember when you needed to have a perfect goddamn record to win a college football championship. That's the way it was. 11-1, too bad.
Sports Rage tonight, only on SportsGrid.
Grandma Bear, who owns the football team, probably comes in, gives a little, oh, man, you're such a good little boy out there. Congratulations, the way you coach this football team. I'm never going to fire you.
Totally, I missed you pinching your own cheek as I was looking down and did not know we were getting.
Oh, Donnie, you got such a good show there with that guy named Ben. Like, that's what your grandma would do to you when you go see her on Thanksgiving or Christmas,
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
Together, both Devontae Adams and Garrett Wilson had huge nights. Aaron Rodgers loves the two big targets, and he says if this is going to happen, going to be very tough on the defense to decide who they want to go after.
Adams and this kid, Wilson, I won't deny what they can do, but nobody else does jack.
Pharrell Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid.
Oh, I'm going to miss you tomorrow, man. You got to be here for one of these Football Fridays. But in lieu, of course, German Harry will be bringing it, so we'll get some of the thoughts from DRS. Looking forward to a marquee weekend. Week number 11 in the National Football League. Donnie, it starts tonight, of course, in Philadelphia. We'll continue our preview, breakdown, best bets upcoming for Thursday night football between the Eagles and the Commanders. A great divisional duel. It is not the only one where the top spot in a division is at stake based on the result of this Week 11 game. No love lost between two organizations, two head coaches that know each other very, very well. In the Steel City on Sunday, the Pittsburgh Steelers at 7-2 in the top spot in the AFC North by a half game in front of the 7-3 Baltimore Ravens will face off inside Acrisure again for first place in the AFC North on the line. Pittsburgh 3-point home underdog, total 48.5. DRS, let's first start with the team that is favored.
Yeah.
Is the right side favored in the Ravens?
They are the right side favorite. And also keep in mind at the FanDuel Sportsbook earlier this week, they were favored by 3.5. Now we're down to 3. And I completely agree with that. These are two evenly matched teams. And now you have that extra offensive oomph here for the Pittsburgh Steelers. And I think that plays into it. But hear me out on this too. During the week, you're watching these lines move, yes, but also keep in mind, Najee Harris sat out of practice yesterday, did not practice due to an ankle injury. You take a look at Alex Highsmith, who's an unbelievably talented defensive end / linebacker pass rusher. He's not going to play in this football game. Dante Jackson, also a cornerback, struggling with a hamstring injury, not going to practice and didn't practice yesterday. So there is an injury report full of concerns for the Pittsburgh Steelers, but I'm still not changing my opinion just yet until I see it, because Thursday practice and Friday to see who's going. I just think Pittsburgh is centered where this is a great chance for them to beat the Baltimore Ravens, and I do think taking the 3 points for me makes the most sense early in the week right now.
So here's a really good bit of note from Stuckey. I think he works with Action Network. It's a name that some know. But since Harbaugh got to Baltimore in 2008, year 17 for Harbaugh, year number 18 for Mike Tomlin, of course, that consistency is rare in the National Football League. But since Harbaugh arrived in Baltimore, favorites of 3 or more in Ravens-Steelers game, of course, it's at that flat number of a field goal, are 2, 18, and 3. Against the spread, a cover percentage of just 10%. percentage points. Harbaugh himself, when favored by at least a field goal against the bitter rivals in Pittsburgh. 0-10-2 against the number. You can win the game outright, but still, that flat number of 3 is huge. I will just say this. The Steelers, an underdog 3 times this year, outright victories in all 3. 14-11 straight up as a dog since the end of the Big Ben era, starting in 2022, along with the Chiefs, who we'll talk about in just a moment, as an underdog, the only 2 teams in the NFL in that span to have a winning record outright. And the Chiefs have only been an underdog 5 times, Pittsburgh 15 times in total. But the Ravens 4 times this year, DRS, against really good competition. A favorite of 4 points or less, they have covered in all 4 of those games. Again, the good competition in Dallas, when the Cowboys still maybe had a little bit of something. And the Ravens had started 0-2, by the way. Against Buffalo, resounding win by 25. That overtime thriller week 5 against Cincinnati and against a banged-up Buccaneers team, but still they entered that game having been at a 4-2 mark. So the Ravens have played in games that's expected to be great and tight, and they have come out on the winning end with a cover as well. It's not the game of Sunday, and it's not the game of the week. In fact, one of the games of the year on the horizon Sunday in Western New York. The Buffalo Bills, now a 2.5-point home favorite against the Kansas City Chiefs. Total at 46.5 DRS. Game of the year, part 3 is the distinction. It is worthy. Will it live up to the hype in Orchard Park?
Yeah, shout out to Josh Allen, who was on the microphone yesterday saying, like, it's only a Week 11 game. It's not like it's anything more than that. Nonsense. This is a monster measuring stick game. And also, if you want to catch Kansas City and not have them home for the holidays, the Buffalo Bills have to win this football game. Let's also remind ourselves, the look-ahead line last week, -1.5-point favorite towards Kansas City. That's now swung, as we see, to -2.5 as a favorite for the Buffalo Bills, despite right around 7 to every 8 out of 10 tickets coming in on Kansas City. I think this is a tough spot for Kansas City. If they are going to lose, you need Josh Allen to play extremely well in this game. I think Kansas City goes down, but I say this. If you're out there just betting Kansas City because all they do is win, I can't fault you for that. I really can't fault you for that.
KC, an underdog once this year in the Super Bowl 58 rematch. They beat the Niners on the road by double digits. They are a perfect 5-0 straight up as a dog since the beginning of last season. Thursday night in the prop perspective with Tom Vecchio on his big day next.
The sharpest football contest show in the land, the Las Vegas Football Contest Show, focuses on Circus Sports Million, Circus Survivor, and the Westgate Super Contest, handicapping the games and releasing our contest picks every week of the season. With 2 former Super Contest winners, Brady Cannon and James Salinas, a former NFL player, Mike Pritchard, and over $1 million in contest prize money won combined, the Las Vegas Football Contest Show will have you prepared this season like none other.
We live in a society right now where everybody's a snowflake, everybody's a cupcake, and everybody thinks that nothing is fair. Everything is like, it's not fair. We should have a better chance. We need more. You know what? I'm old enough to remember when you needed to have a perfect goddamn record to win a college football championship. That's the way it was. 11-1, too bad.
Sports Rage tonight, only on SportsGrid.
Grandma Bear, who owns the football team, probably comes in, gives a little, oh, man, you're such a good little boy out there. Congratulations, the way you coach this football team. I'm never going to fire you.
Totally, I missed you pinching your own cheek as I was looking down and did not know we were getting.
Oh, Donnie, you got such a good show there with that guy named Ben. Like, that's what your grandma will do to you when you go see her on Thanksgiving or Christmas,
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
Together, both Davante Adams and Garrett Wilson had huge nights. Aaron Rodgers loves the 2 big targets, and he says if this is going to happen, going to be very tough on the defense to decide who they want to go after.
Adams and this kid, Wilson, I won't deny what they can do, but nobody else does jack.
Pharrell Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid.
Live right here on this Thursday on the early line on SportsGrid. It's a Thursday. It's the start of week number 11. It's a first-place bout in the NFC East between the Eagles and the Commanders. But maybe this Thursday is officially here at the SportsGrid Network. Tom Vecchio Day. What a day for Vecchio. His third time on the early line this week. Hardest working man at the SportsGrid. He's taken over that mantle. He'll be involved in the pregame show and the halftime show for Thursday Night Football. But most importantly, Vecchio, your first time in studio, in person. I've known you for nearly 3 years. We have done countless appearances together on television and radio. And the fact that Rightside gets to meet you in person first tonight is something to me, man. But we are happy to have you here on this Thursday, a big day for you. We're excited to get your thoughts on Thursday Night Football.
Of course. Thank you for that warm introduction. More than usual. Yeah, I will be in studio for the first time today, filling big shoes for Joe Lisi on the in-game live. I think we're in for an awesome game tonight, and that's what it comes down to. Obviously, maybe I got to hype up Jaden Daniels a little bit more than I normally would. I do think he's awesome. Tonight's game, we're in for some scoring. There's just too much talent for this game not to have points. Do I expect it to hit the over? I think that's a little bit of a different question.
DRS, I'm going to pass it off to you here. Why don't you welcome Vecchio on? Let him understand the atmosphere he is walking into tonight outside of the game, just so he knows.
Look, when you get into that studio and the lights go on, you understand that bright bulb, that bright star sitting right to the right of you at that desk here. Let the big dog eat, but also make sure that you give Kevin a lot of pushback throughout this entire show, because now your job, stepping in for Lisi, is me and you gang up on Kevin, and that's the way we have fun with it. But there is one true star in that arena, and it ain't Kevin, trust me, all right?
Okay. I mean, that's good to know. When I've seen the back and forth. This isn't going to be a wall segment on Saturday morning when you guys are debating the college football top 10 and who's on the outside looking in.
That's a bad show.
I don't know if there's going to be dancing towards the camera as Kevin does, but we're in for a good one tonight.
It could be, Vecchio, if you say too many things about the Commanders, though. Then you might have both of those guys dancing around you. I would say, right, Joe Lisi is his own unique character. You said big shoes to fill. I think he checks in at a 9, so not entirely sure. But I would just say be you.
Well, now I'm thinking maybe I should just back the Commanders just to play the heel tonight, just to go against Kevin and Donnie.
That's not going to work out. That's not going to work out in your favor at that point. Yeah. But you know what? To be honest, the positive tonight for Tom Vecchio is he's not going to splash the pot, because Joe Lisi bets 16 different wagers, but he always follows through FanDuel. So he's ahead of everybody and then acts like he doesn't know what's going to happen, and then does stuff like this. All right, Jaden Daniels, let's see what you got on this play, knowing that it's probably a 45-yard completion. So I do respect the fact that we're actually going to be in unison tonight for once and not angry at one of our counterparts. So there's that.
Okay.
And Vecchio, DRS gets very passionate about the things he truly cares about. Spoilers of live watching a game is maybe number 1. Scheduling of college basketball might be number 2. Now, Vecchio, as I said, you be you. You are great with the numbers. You are great with your insights based on what the numbers are telling us. You already mentioned it. A great and potentially high-scoring game is ahead tonight in Philadelphia at the Link. 3.5-point spread in favor of the Eagles. The over-under short week Thursday night game stands at 48.5. What are those numbers telling you about the flow of tonight's game between these two NFC East foes?
We're in for some back and forth scoring. I think there's a realistic outcome, as we've seen in some of these recent primetime games where the Eagles win, maybe they don't cover. And I think that over-under is going to be right on. Like, if I said the Eagles win this game 24-21, that's a good amount of scoring, especially for a Thursday night. We're going to get some touchdowns. We're going to get those main players that we expect to score. The spread's going to be right on it. There's a spot that I think it may fall just a bit short of the under. I don't think we're going to be massively under at like 30 or 35 points. We're going to be in the mid to upper 40. So I think we are in a spot where we're going to see some overs hit, especially if you like some props, you want to maybe ladder some players. I think there's a lot of opportunity for that. I think there will be a chance to take live overs, especially if this game starts off a little bit slow. It's Thursday night, it's a divisional game, et cetera, et cetera. If we see a live total drop to, the upper 30s or very low 40s, that's where I'm going to look to jump in on the over on that, and you'll be in a good spot.
Let's take a look at some quarterback props then, because I'm excited about both of these quarterbacks, Jalen Hurts and Jaden Daniels. I haven't bet, Tom, a lot of props on Jalen Hurts this year throwing the football, but now offensive line fully intact. Julian Mailata's coming back tonight. You saw last week, A.J. Brown, how would he react to that knee injury where he left the previous week? He was fine. Devontae Smith, another week after that hamstring injury. Dallas Goedert back here. So I'm excited about Jalen Hurts. How are you playing these two quarterbacks tonight?
I think there's a chance that we see Hurts hit the over on his rushing attempts, which I specifically like. I would say you could look to both quarterbacks for their completions. We do see the Commanders top 10 in the league in blitz rate per dropback. And yes, the Eagles offensive line has gotten better, but if we're going to see some scoring and we're going to see Hurts dropping back, obviously that pressure will cause him to scramble at times. So I think maybe on attempts for Hurts that could be there. Obviously he's always in play for a touchdown once they get down to the goal line. So I don't think there's a wrong way to go for tonight, right? If you want to go over on his rushing plus passing, I think that's fine. You want to go over on his total attempts, I think that's fine. The same thing with Daniels. You can go over on his completions because we know he's been extremely effective at passing the ball this year. I think a lot of things are in play. Donnie, like you said in the last segment, if you want to simply take the Chiefs just because they're winning it, you can't fault them for that. That's kind of the way I feel about a lot of players tonight. If you want to be on a player for the over on his yards or over on receptions, I'm not going to say that's a bad pick. I think we're in for a really, really good game tonight.
Vecchio, when you look at Jaden Daniels, some of the efficiency has worn off ever so slightly. 70.8% completion in his first four. He has not been above 70 since that in his last 5 fully healthy games. In fact, some of the numbers have dropped off outside of the Hail Mary game against Chicago, 209 or less in his last 2, and Philly's defense is getting much better. But it's still, Jaden Daniels in this game tonight should be prolific. Now let's go to the backfield mates for the quarterback. Saquon Barkley on one side for Philadelphia. Brian Robinson Jr. missed the last 2 games with a hamstring injury, expected to play tonight. How do you break down the backs for Thursday Night Football?
You know, Barkley's numbers or any running back that high is generally not something I want to go to. I think Barkley's receiving is far more interesting than simply just going to his rushing. And of course, then I would look to rushing plus receiving. You know, if you were buying into what you just said with Daniels being a little bit less effective, you know, maybe, again, coming off this injury, I'm not going to say he's not 100%, but this is where Spot would say, okay, let's get Robinson a little bit more involved. You know, he's had a couple weeks off. He's ready to go. Let's get him on the ground going so we can take a little bit of that pressure off of Daniels, who, again, has been just a little bit less effective than he's been. So I certainly don't mind the rushing yards on Brian Robinson. I would also look to his touchdown odds at plus 140, which I do think are solid when we're sitting at a game with a nearly 50 over-under tonight.
Let's take a look at some of those receiving props. I know you're pretty high, same as myself. If you think that Jalen Hurts is going to have a good football game, A.J. Brown is raring to go against that secondary. Tom, he's listed at 80.5. Top dog for Washington is Terry McLaurin at 60.5. How are we playing the pass catchers tonight in Philadelphia?
Tonight's an A.J. Brown game. As I often say in a lot of the pregame shows, it's a specific game. And that's going to be A.J. Brown touchdown at plus 130. 32% target share this year. He hasn't scored since week 7 against the Giants. Obviously, he missed a few games here or there. I also like him over 20.5 for his longest reception. He's been over this mark in 5 out of the 6 games he's played. He has multiple games of 40-plus receptions. He has a 14.5 ADOT. We look back to some of the Commanders' recent games. We see George Pickens last week and Mike Williams both going over 30 yards. And then I would look to Zach Ertz on the other side. He actually has the second highest target share on the Commanders at 19.6%, so over 34.5 receiving yards for him.
And a little bit more meaning, perhaps, for Zach Ertz, a homecoming in Philadelphia, now back against his former team, that is the Eagles. Vecchio, you're over in Connecticut. You might have to start hitting the road to get over to New Jersey, so we'll let you go here by showing Tom's top props one final time. Make sure you got these down, and then you'll see Tom Vecchio live in studio tonight. Vecchio, safe travels. Have a great night, man. I'll be watching, and you'll be with Donnie, so.
Yeah, of course. It's going to be a great game. I would say tune in before the game for some SGPs that we'll have, and we'll keep things going the entire game.
Heck yeah. Going to be a great time, Tom Vecchio, and we appreciate your time here on the early line always. Donnie and I will give you some picks and some best bets for Thursday night. That's up next here on the early line.
The sharpest football contest show in the land, the Las Vegas Football Contest Show, focuses on Circus Sports Million, Circus Survivor, and the Westgate Super Contest, handicapping the games and releasing our contest picks every week of the season. With two former Super Contest winners, Brady Cannon and James Salinas, a former NFL player, Mike Pritchard, and over $1 million in contest prize money won combined, the Las Vegas Football Contest Show will have you prepared this season like none other.
We live in a society right now where everybody's a snowflake, everybody's a cupcake, and everybody thinks that nothing is fair. Everything is like, it's not fair. We should have a better chance. We need more. You know what? I'm old enough to remember when you needed to have a perfect goddamn record to win a college football championship. That's the way it was. 11-1, too bad.
Sports Rage tonight, only on SportsGrid.
Grandma Bear, who owns the football team, probably comes in, gives a little, oh, man, you're such a good little boy out there. Congratulations, the way you coach this football team. I'm never going to fire you.
Totally, I missed you pinching your own cheek. As I was looking down and did not know we were getting.
Oh, Donnie, you got such a good show there with that guy named Ben. Like, that's what your grandma would do to you when you go see her on Thanksgiving or Christmas,
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
Together, both Davante Adams and Garrett Wilson had huge nights. Aaron Rodgers loves the two big targets, and he says if this is going to happen, going to be very tough on the defense to decide who they want to go after.
Adams and this kid Wilson, I won't deny what they can do, but nobody else does jack.
Pharrell Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid.
For one final time, the theme of this Thursday, the top battle in the NFC East between Philadelphia and Washington, the Eagles and the Commanders, in a great Week 11 Thursday night football game to kick off this week in the National Football League. The Eagles enter on a 5-game win streak at 7-2, a half game in front of Washington now atop the NFC East standings. The Commanders falling at home last week by just a single point to the Pittsburgh Steelers in a great game. Washington now 7-3, 3.5-point spread. DRS in favor of the Birds tonight at home. Total is 48.5. We love having the numbers drive our conversation. With the magnitude and the significance of this Thursday night game, where do you look first?
It's got to be the Philadelphia Eagles at the -3.5. It's one of those, again, I always say this. If you think the Eagles are going to win, you can't say, yep, they'll win, but I don't think they can cover. That's ridiculous at 3.5. And also, as we talked about ad nauseum, the Philadelphia Eagles coaching staff saying ultra-aggressive, 2-point conversions, not kicking field goals. That usually adds up. So maybe that 3 is not so significant that maybe some other teams would actually drive through that. 48.5, I think, does make some sense. We get points because that will be from the catalyst, the Philadelphia Eagles. Even a team total for me, for the Eagles, makes sense. Let's understand one thing. I like both of these offenses. I don't like both of these defenses. The Philadelphia Eagles on Pro Football Focus right now, #1 ranked defense there. Oh, no, that's good. Look at the numbers. Look at the way it's played out. Look how much better they've become over the past 4 to 5 weeks. But, Donnie, some of the quarterbacks here, nonsense. The numbers are what the numbers are and who you play. Washington in the bottom 5 here. So if we're looking at two offenses that can get after it, but only one defense that theoretically can. And by the way, the pass rush for the Eagles, they can't get home over the first 2 weeks. They've been getting home like gangbusters the last month to month and a half. And also, that secondary that now includes Cooper DeJean and also Quinyon Mitchell, absolutely lights out here. The advantages are with the Philadelphia Eagles. It's Thursday night. They're home. They should win this football game for me, Ben.
Yeah, DRS, I agree, right? I bet the Eagles at a 3.5-point number. I voted for them in the Fade the Public poll. I believe that Philadelphia is the right side. The Eagles, a top 5 rushing defense. The Commanders, a bottom 5 rushing defense. Last year, Philadelphia, one of the worst secondaries that you will see in the National Football League. Now third best, allowing less than $175 through the air. Washington, not bad in terms of its secondary, only giving up 183 yards per game. That's 5th best in the NFL, but the defense does favor Philadelphia. Here is what is confusing me a little bit in terms of the total. I don't think this is a 17-10 ugly Thursday night short week game.
Yeah.
But I do wonder a little bit if we get close to 48.5, if I believe so heavily in the Birds. Again, Philly on a 5-game win streak. They have covered in 3 of those 5 games, twice as a favorite, both of those times as a favorite against an NFC East divisional foe. Now, the Giants and the Cowboys are nowhere even close to the Commanders, but the Eagles allowed just 9 points combined in each of those 2 covers against their divisional foe in this 5-game win streak. Part of the reason, Donnie, that I'm believing in the Eagles once again, even more so in terms of this game, the division, and the conference championship price, is because of the improvement of that defense week over week, month over month here in this NFL season, and understanding that Vic Fangio is a tough guy to play for. It takes a while to understand the intricacies of his defensive scheme. Philly is doing that now, and you are seeing the results.
Absolutely, you are. Much better defense here, and now you can rely on that secondary that was squeaky over the past couple of years. And again, the defensive line starting to get home, and Zach Baun, a linebacker that was a reserve basically down in New Orleans, who was looked to be a special team reserve guy, maybe the best middle linebacker in the NFL. It's crazy how well they're playing, but also look at that Eagles offense, starting with the Giants game. They didn't even need to score that many points. They basically took the air out of the football the final quarter and a half, still scored 28 points. They take on the Bengals on the road, 37 points. Jaguars at home, 28 points. The Cowboys, who they took the air out of the football in the entirety of the second half, 34 points. They're going to score points tonight. If you can just get that running mate with the Washington Commanders, which I think you might be able to some degree, we should get points tonight. So I'm looking at perspective. Better version on offense for the Eagles than the Commanders, yes. Better version on defense, it's the Eagles too. I'll take it.
Yeah, absolutely so. And DRS, although I think Philly wins this game and might win so comfortably, I don't think it's double digits. I still think it's probably a single score. I just don't think it's a single field goal. So the Commanders will be more of a running mate than we have seen for Philadelphia the last few weeks, at least the entirety of the game. And that perhaps starts with the quarterback position. Jaden Daniels continues his historic rookie year. As we mentioned, some of the efficiency and the completion percentage that was always north of 70 has not been in 5 straight games for Jaden Daniels. On the other side, Jalen Hurts playing much better football as well. And it should be said, Hurts' touchdown price, -110 for a guy that has scored 8 times in the last 4 games. That number slightly skewed. Multiple touchdowns for Jalen Hurts in 3 of the last 4 for the Eagles.
Yes, and also take a look at some props that I like here from that touchdown market. It is Jalen Hurts and it is A.J. Brown from an Eagles perspective. If there's one area where I look at the Commanders and say, here's what I have to overcompensate for, it's the running game of Jaden Daniels. FanDuel currently listing him at 43.5 yards. It's pretty stocky right there, but if you feel they're going to pull off that comeback, it can't be like last week where he barely ran against these Pittsburgh Steelers. You look at his other games, he's always in that realm. He has to run and run extremely well to keep the sticks moving forward for the Washington Commanders, because Brian Robinson, who if he's healthy might have a good game tonight, I know I need a good game out of Jaden Daniels, particularly on the ground, to help out that running game.
The Commanders were not great running the football last week. Daniels and or Eckler without Brian Robinson Jr., who has missed the last 2 for Washington with a hamstring injury. Expected to be back, but his rushing yards prop minimal, 45.5. Again, I still look at Saquon Barkley, that combo prop, combined rushing plus receiving. He's had at least 116 scrimmage yards in 7 of 9 games for Philadelphia. He has rushed the football 17 times. 6 times for Philly, 5 of the 6. He has gone over his rushing yards prop. Now, quickly to the wideouts, DRS. You mentioned A.J. Brown. So did Tom Vecchio. Terry McLaurin having a career year already for a guy that has been consistent with Jaden Daniels, 60.5 his receiving yards prop.
Yes, and if we're looking there, like Dallas Goedert, interesting to me. Zach Ertz is actually one at 34.5. As I always say, the quarterback's best friend on the road in a hostile environment, dump it over to Ertz. He's not going to get a lot of running yards after the catch, but he should be fine there. Touchdown mark for me at the tight end position. Maybe Zach Ertz, maybe Goddard, but for me, it's probably more just leaning on Terry McLaurin. He's got to have a big night if they want to win there for Washington.
He's already got 6 touchdowns. His career best was 7 in his rookie year. DRS, have a great time tonight. Should be a fun show. More on the early line next.
The sharpest football contest show in the land, the Las Vegas Football Contest Show, focuses on Circus Sports Million, Circus Survivor, and the Westgate Super Contest, handicapping the games and releasing our contest picks every week of the season. With two former Super Contest winners, Brady Cannon and James Salinas, a former NFL player, Mike Pritchard, and over $1 million in contest prize money won combined, the Las Vegas Football Contest Show will have you prepared this season like none other.
We live in a society right now where everybody's a snowflake, everybody's a cupcake, and everybody thinks that nothing is fair. Everything is like, it's not fair. We should have a better chance. We need more. You know what? I'm old enough to remember when you needed to have a perfect goddamn record to win a college football championship. That's the way it was. 11-1, too bad.
Sports Rage tonight, only on SportsGrid.
Grandma Bear, who owns the football team, probably comes in, gives a little, "Oh, Mike, you're such a good little boy out there. Congratulations, the way you coach this football team. I'm never going to fire you."
Fortunately, I missed you pinching your own cheek as I was looking down and did not know we were getting.
"Oh, Donnie, you got such a good show there with that guy named Ben." Like, that's what your grandma would do to you when you go see her on Thanksgiving or Christmas,
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
Together, both Davante Adams and Garrett Wilson had huge nights. Aaron Rodgers loves the two big targets, and he says if this is going to happen, going to be very tough on the defense to decide who they want to go after.
Adams and this kid Wilson, I won't deny what they can do, but nobody else does jack.
Pharrell Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid.
Live right here on the Early Line to wrap up this Thursday edition and our 3 hours together. I was not here yesterday, so I want to react now to the second week of the college football playoff rankings that have been unveiled. These felt a little bit spicier than week number one. It was the first week ever this season and in the 12-team era to see how the CFP selection committee was dealing and evaluating with all the action we had seen in this college football season, what it would look like in a potential and projected bracket, so on and so forth. And then you started to get a sense on Tuesday as we show you these rankings here. There wasn't all that many changes. I mean, we did see Georgia lose, so they plummeted. Miami lost. They plummeted. One of the 5 remaining unbeatens entering Week 11. Miami did fall by 5 spots, and we saw Indiana move up into the top 5. Penn State somehow, some way, with a loss, and Indiana does not have one, still in front of IU. BYU up by a few spots. I said not many changes. What I meant to say was expected movement based on game results. We'll talk about game results in just a moment as well. Perhaps the biggest move, Georgia getting absolutely beat bad in Oxford by Ole Miss, falling 9 spots, 1 spot behind the Runnin' Rebs, who moved up by 5 positions from 16 to number 11. And again, all of this is important because it's not just the rankings 1 through 12 or 1 through 15. Based on where things are slotted right now, you do see the projected bracket. So let's show you what that projected bracket would look like. Oregon is the number 1 team. They have the best college football playoff price. They are the champions currently of the Big Ten in this projected outlook. They still are co-favorites or around the same price as Ohio State in the conference odds, and yet they have the head-to-head tiebreaker, so they get that nod. Texas, highest-ranked team in the SEC. They earn the opening round bye. BYU still unbeaten, despite what the odds makers might tell you about the Cougars. Highest-ranked team in the Big 12. In Miami, despite losing and not being undefeated anymore in the ACC, which SMU is, still the highest-ranked ACC team at this moment and would earn that opening round bye. And because Miami fell back in the way that they did, and we had some other movement, Georgia plummeting by 9 spots. Boise State fell back by a spot as well, ranked in the original top 11 in week 1 of the CFP rankings, now at number 13, which complicates the process a little bit as we show you those projected opening round on-campus games. And again, the rankings numbers different from your seed line in a projected bracket. Ohio State is number 2 in the country, and yet would be the 5 seed, the highest at-large team in a projected college football playoff. Boise State would still be the 5th highest ranked conference champ and would be in that 5-12 game, and yet they're ranked 13th. The other at-large bids look as so. Penn State and Indiana for the top 5 Big Ten teams. They are in those spots hosting college football playoff games. Penn State would be the 6th seed. Indiana would be the 7th seed, despite their rankings. And Tennessee would actually be the 8th seed hosting Notre Dame, as the Vols are in front of the Irish. Indiana and Bloomington hosting Alabama in a college football playoff game, and now Ole Miss into that 11th spot, both in ranking and in seed line. So then the conjecture followed the actual rankings. Well, look at the strength of schedule for Indiana. It's at 100. Yeah, they've been whooping everybody. The only game they barely won was against Michigan, the reigning national champs, who do not look like that, I understand. But still, Indiana's been blasting everybody. You want to get mad at strength of schedule? Look at Miami and Penn State, who do not have those marquee wins, by the way. Miami did beat Louisville. Where is it for Penn State, who lost to Ohio State? So here is my final point, because I think this is going to be very important, as Georgia would be on the outside of the college football playoff right now looking in, and other SEC teams like A&M and LSU. You will hear from people, well, look how difficult the SEC strength of schedule is. Yeah, part of that is perceived bias in early season rankings that bolster a Missouri team that has zero reason to be ranked still at number 23. Or the fact LSU has looked awful and remains in the top 25. Losses matter. Wins matter more than losses. Even if you look okay in a loss against a decent team, you lost the football game. Losses matter. Wins will always be supreme. Remember that as you look at the college football playoff race. A Football Friday tomorrow on the Early Line.
Together, both Davante Adams and Garrett Wilson had huge nights. Aaron Rodgers loves the 2 big targets, and he says if this is going to happen, going to be very tough on the defense to decide who they want to go after.
Adams and this kid Wilson, I won't deny what they can do, but nobody else does jack.
Pharrell Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid.
A lot of concern, I would say, for Georgia in Carson Beck. 3 interceptions once again. His 3rd 3-interception game in the last 5 for UGA.
You can argue if they had Alex Orji as their starting quarterback for Georgia, they would be perfect and unbeaten right now just by not turning the football over and running it with your talented backfield.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
Anyone that's been to a sporting event, the atmosphere before a game, I think Game Time Decisions has that same exact atmosphere. This is our arena. This is what we do. There is going to be an energy to Game Time Decisions that you will feel night in and night out. The excitement you get when you lock your bets in, when you're figuring out what you want to do, we can zone in on the biggest games each night. I want this to be the place that people come to before the game starts so they feel as ready as possible to lock in their cards. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions to get that new information, react to it, and be able to then bet accordingly. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on